Welcome to my course on Micro Studio board game video production. This is a how-to course focused on efficient use of space and multiple cameras. It's directed mainly at people just starting out with the board game YouTube channel, but hopefully there's some information here that might fill in some gaps if you've been doing it for a while. I will be talking about some specific equipment and making some specific recommendations occasionally, and when I do, I'll try to give you approximate prices as of 2022, but know that I have no vested interest in what equipment you purchase. So we're going to be spending some time together over the course of this series, so get yourself some coffee and tea, and let's get started. Let's begin with an outline of the course. I'll start with some preliminaries, such as who is this course for and what will it cover. Then we'll talk about room setup, gear setup, with an emphasis on efficiency and working in small spaces and going for consistency. We will spend some time talking about choosing a camera and what are the features that are most important. Then we'll look at camera settings and getting the look you want, and we'll compare lots of different settings, and you can see how they affect the overall look of your video. We'll talk about camera lenses, choosing lenses, what kind of lenses might be most appropriate for you. Then we'll spend some time talking about lighting and comparing different lighting setups, and you can see the look, how lighting changes the look of your video. We'll talk about audio, different kinds of microphones. We'll listen to how they sound differently, and we'll talk about why you might choose one over another and how important audio is. Then we'll talk about two different workflows you're going to be encountering if you make a board game YouTube channel: live streaming and recording and editing. Then we'll take a deeper dive into live streaming and compare different hardware you might use, either dedicated hardware for live streaming or using a PC with software like OBS and some capture cards. We'll talk about a whole bunch of miscellaneous gadgets that might make your life a little easier. I'll talk about the use of checklists, why it's so important, and different kinds of checklists you might use. Maybe we'll give you some examples of the ones that I use. I'll talk about a whole bunch of miscellaneous small tips and tricks, common pitfalls. Then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about how to cut costs. Most of what I'll be talking about is quite expensive, so if you're interested in cutting costs at the end, we'll return to that. Then I'll give you my final thoughts, places to learn more. I'm not an expert in most of this stuff, but there are some great YouTube channels where you can learn much more about any one of these areas. We'll talk about that. And then maybe at the end there'll be some bonus episodes on specific filming techniques and editing and managing your YouTube channel, and maybe a live Q&A. What's so special about board game filming compared to any other filming? Well, the main thing, of course, is that you want to showcase not just the humans playing the game, but the game itself. You want to showcase that often quite large board and game that's on the table. And that's not so simple. Often you'll want to combine multiple cameras, have a front-facing camera and a top-down camera, and be able to combine those and do multi-camera editing. But you're also going to find that the view you want to show from your front camera is going to be quite different depending on whether you're giving a review and you don't need to show much of the table and the game, or you're doing a playthrough and you want a very clear view of the board. So the need to balance those two things is what makes board game filming slightly more complicated than just talking to the camera. Who is this video series for? Well, first of all, I'm not going to assume you have any background technical knowledge about any of this. We'll come at it from a clean slate. I've described this as being a course for board game video production, but really 100% of this is going to be relevant whether you're doing board games or something else that requires a large table space that you want to capture, and that you'll probably want multiple cameras involved, and specifically a top-down camera. So if you have no use of filming anything on the table and you only need one camera, I think there'll still be useful stuff in this course, but not as much as if you need to combine multiple camera angles. It doesn't matter whether you're filming for YouTube or Twitch or whatever. The actual platform is irrelevant. I will be focused on efficient use of space and minimizing the time required to do editing, to set up and tear down, etc. That is very important to me, and that will be a focus in the course. So it's sort of it'll be a half technical discussion and half sort of organizational psychology discussion. So what is this video series not? Well, first of all, there's nothing in this series about making popular content, getting clicks, getting views, monetizing your videos, search engine optimization, etc. I know nothing about that. I have no business talking about that. You're on your own. There's also nothing in this course about whether you actually should be making a board game YouTube channel. The short answer is you probably should not. It's a terrible waste of time and can turn into an obsession. But at this point, it's probably too late to stop you. Regarding board games in particular, there'll be nothing in this course about choosing board games, getting early access to board games, Kickstarter previews, making money from making board game videos. I know nothing about that. You're on your own there. I'm not going to cover every possible way to do everything. I'll focus mainly on the choices I've made, and I may be opinionated about some areas, but I'll try to also give you sort of a broad picture of what else is available. And again, I'm not an expert in any of these particular areas, but I will try to give you pointers to those who are. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about my general philosophy of approach here. My focus is on efficiency and consistency. So I want to find a way to minimize the setup, startup, teardown times, to maximize consistency once you've spent time dialing in and finding the looks you want for different kinds of videos. I want to make it very easy to set those up for the different kinds of videos you'll be filming. I want to minimize the space needed to do the filming, minimize the disruption to your living space, and minimize disruption to your enjoyment of the games as you play them. Maximize the efficiency of editing and get the best bang for your buck. What's the key things you have to do in editing to get the best look you can without going crazy and spending 10 hours for each hour of video? I will, in general, assume that you can throw money at problems to make them go away, but we'll circle back at the end of the series to talk about ways to cut costs if that's a concern.